So, episode 6 of season 7. This is the episode that I think is probably going to have a lot of Walking Dead fans pretty much checking out if they didn't already check out last week on this season. Because people are getting bored. I mean, and I don't blame them. I understand it completely. These have been some pretty slow episodes. As a matter of fact, the only really thrilling episode was the first one of the season. And this is a negative that I pointed out before about Negan basically coming in and just taking complete control. He has such strong control on people right now that there's really not any pushback going on. I mean, some things are in development, but right now he has such a stronghold on everything that really nothing is happening. It feels like nothing is happening, even though some things are developing. But I had a feeling this was going to happen, and we don't know, when things are going to pick up. I think once people get the word that there is an exciting episode out there, then people will tune back in and catch themselves up and everything. But for right now, yeah, some people are tuning out. I can't blame them. And I think this was a very divisive episode. For me, though, I lean towards liking this episode. It definitely wasn't perfect. I mean, it was far from perfect, but we'll get into that. So for starters, just a little background. If you don't understand why Heath and Tara were away, why they ended up on this little side quest, it really came down to what the actors were dealing with in real life. Corey Hawkins had another obligation, or I really don't know which he was obligated to first, but apparently his contract allowed him to also film the 24 return on Fox. So that's where he was off, he was dealing with that. And then the actress that plays Tara, she had a baby. I mean, you can see her there in the picture. So that's why these two particular characters were basically sidelined in the series. And I was really wondering what in the world had happened. I really couldn't remember what had happened with them because there are so many characters on The Walking Dead, and we've already had a lot more introduced this season. It does get a little tricky to keep up with sometimes, especially with the gaps between episodes. But yeah, just a little background on why these characters were sidelined. But I think overall it worked out for the best. Now, Heath said right at the beginning of this episode, he gave this little monologue about survival, and he said, nobody's in this together, not anymore. And Tara saw right through it. She saw that he really didn't believe that. I think he was trying to convince himself to believe that. And I'll talk some more about this later on because the way this dialogue was set up, it did bother me just a little bit. But like I said, I'll get into that just a little bit later on. And by the way, them finding just 8 rusty cans of okra, I mean, I can't stand okra anymore. I used to eat it mixed into things, but I really can't stand it anymore. So when I heard that, and I think they chose that on purpose just to give the impact of how much their mission has not been a success. So, for you okra lovers, sorry, but I know there's a lot of people that just can't stand it. They think about how slimy it is and everything. So, yeah, that was definitely a smart choice on the writer's part there. So Tara was being very optimistic, but I do wonder if her optimism is going to hold. Remember, at this point, the beginning of the episode, she didn't know that Denise was dead. She doesn't know that. So I kind of wonder if she's just an optimistic person in general. And trying to think back on her in older episodes is kind of hard because, again, she was always along with other characters. This is the first time that she's really shined on her own, that she's been given the spotlight. So it's kind of hard sometimes to think back about the character. But I think she is overall optimistic. I just still wonder, is that going to hold up? Because it's easy to have some optimism when you have something to look forward to. She had Denise to look forward to. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that optimism will hold up. And by the way, I said this before and I'll say it again. I really do like that they're, to a certain extent, keeping Denise's spirit alive. Her death still does matter in the series. So for the first time in a little while, the walkers actually lent some tension. I wouldn't say it's one of The Walking Dead's best zombie moments, not by far. It wouldn't make the top 10, probably wouldn't make the top 20. But it was nice that they used the walkers in an interesting way. And the walker opening up his mouth and all that sand pouring out, that was a pretty good image. So I like that scene, even though it was very much telegraphed. still though, it was nice to use the walkers in some way that actually mattered. Whereas most of this season, the walkers have pretty much just been props. They've been there to be killed quickly, and just to basically say yes, there's still walkers here. That's what it's felt like most of the season. So this Oceanside community, very interesting, of course, because when Tara went into it, you saw right away, no man. But I kind of got that was inkling that it was going to be that way when they first showed the girls on the beach, Cindy and the other girl, I forget her name. But when they first showed them, I had kind of an inkling that's where they were about to go, that it would be a community of just females. And yeah, this very much reminded me of Why the Last Man, which is an awesome series of comics. You can buy these in collected editions. I actually own the whole series. They're not in the best condition because I've moved with them, but it is such a great series. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, actually read the entire series, and she normally had never really read comics that in depth, but she read the whole series beginning to end. It is amazing. So yeah, this really reminded me of that series, which is, it says Why the Last Man, so you get the impression that, yeah, there's a lot of female communities within the world of that story. But I'm not going to say too much about it. Just check that out. Strongly suggest that. And they're still trying to wrap their minds around, studios are trying to wrap their mind around how to adapt Why the Last Man. But personally, to me, I don't think it needs to be adapted. Just read the comic. And I'm sure some people might say that about The Walking Dead, but The Walking Dead works, so Why the Last Man, I think, will be a little bit tougher to pull off, especially since some other shows and books and movies and everything have kind of ripped elements from it. Now, this community of women, Oceanside, getting back to them, you can really feel Negan's presence when he's not there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say that when Negan is not actually depicted on screen, when Jeffrey Dean Morgan is not actually playing the character on screen, I think he's actually been more effective than he's been the majority of the season. I've not really liked most of the time when Negan's been on screen because the character to me comes across as maybe just too much of a bully, not making smart moves, because I still don't see how this man can hold this power when he mistreats so many people, or he like halfway, treats his people right. So I just don't understand how his power can hold, but I do like that through other characters you feel his effect even when he's not around. And you definitely felt that when Tara spared this woman, and the woman, and I'm trying to think of what her name was, Beatrice. Yeah, she spared Beatrice, and it's like that mercy really didn't mean much because this woman is just so afraid of Negan and the Saviors. And she said to her, Beatrice said to Tara, "You have no idea what you started." She feels like there's going to be a war. Now, I really hope that there is more revealed to this community, this Oceanside community, because something doesn't quite feel right. She seemed genuine. Beatrice seemed genuine. When she was talking about how the men and the boys were killed, but I don't know, it just still doesn't quite feel right. Especially the fact that these women have so many weapons. They have a lot of weapons, and it's just like, why wouldn't Negan strip them of their weapons? Something is not quite adding up. I hope it's not a plot hole. I hope it's actually that there is going to be more revealed about this community, and I hope these characters do come back, that they are significant. But I think they will. If they don't, I will be sorely disappointed, though. So the character of Cindy, I really did like this character. As a matter of fact, just on a personal note, I do like that she was played by, I believe, this actress. I didn't look it up, so I'm sorry if I'm wrong about this, but she really looks like an Islander, and I just like that. More presence of diversity. I really did like that. So she did a great job with her performance, and especially when she was saying you have to swear, when she had that kind of breakdown moment, and she was really putting herself out there to protect and save Tara. I think she did a great job with that. The other girl that she was with on the beach at the beginning, to me, she's just that chilling example of what the world lives in and how youth can just be destroyed, basically, that she could just kill indiscriminately, and seemed really willing to do it. She had a chance to kill Tara twice, and I really think if it wasn't for Cindy that she would have done it. So that's again just that shocking element of how youth has been taken away from these young people. But again, Cindy's an example of trying to hang on to that and trying to hang on to some hope. The same way that Tara is. So of course, again, like I said before, one of the key elements here is that Oceanside does have weapons. We did see that Cindy wasn't just talking. She wasn't just making a claim. She really is a good shot. So that, to me, kind of says that the other ladies are probably trained up pretty well also. So this has got to play a factor in some way. Just the fact that they have all these weapons has got to come back up. Now, we know that Tara did keep her promise, but I just feel like this has got to come back up in some way. So with Heath, and I know right now you're probably wondering, why in the world do I have this image from Return of the Jedi here? There's a purpose to it, though. Let me get to the dialogue here that was from this episode. Okay, remember when they flash back to the scene on the bridge, and Tara yelled out to Heath, she said, "We're in this together," and he said, "I know." That, to me, I guess it was meant to show a turn for the character of Heath. But if you think about it realistically, this would have been just a few minutes before they were having that discussion in the RV. So I felt like that dialogue was pretty weak. It almost felt like it was supposed to be a character turn, which just doesn't make sense how quickly that was. I guess you could write it off and say that he was just responding the way that anybody would respond in that situation, and I can accept that. But to me, it felt like one of these situations where, if you think about when Darth Vader sacrificed himself to save the Emperor, and then George Lucas decided to do one of his remixes and add dialogue to the movie where I believe Darth Vader yells out "no" as he grabs the Emperor, and by the way, very old spoiler alert. But but anyway, yeah, when George Lucas decided to add that line in, it was just ridiculous because the act was enough. And I felt like this was a similar situation on that bridge. Just him putting himself out there and really trying to protect Tara and telling her to go. To me, that was enough. That act was enough, and him just saying go was enough. So that little exchange, we're in this together, and I know it just really didn't feel necessary. It kind of made me roll my eyes, so not a huge problem, I guess, but it did bug me just a little bit. So again, the thing with the weapons and trying to keep her word about Oceanside, I hope that this comes back into play. I really do. Like I said, I'll be so disappointed if it doesn't come up because, we do know that secrets can have consequences. It applies to this series. It applies to real life. So I really hope that it comes back into play and that we're not done with Oceanside. And I think those actors, too, they did a great job. The actors that were involved in the Oceanside community, really would like to see them again. And I just feel like there has to be, like, these different communities have got to come together to go against the Saviors. If they don't, just how can they win? I mean, we have Alexandria, Hilltop, Oceanside, Ezekiel's Kingdom. They've got to come together. So hopefully we'll see that developing later on in the season. I don't know if we've seen enough to say that that's what they're working towards right now. It doesn't really seem that way. As a matter of fact, these communities, I still feel like the series overall is doing a poor job of really letting us see how many people are in these communities. It's very tough to call the numbers. I don't know if that's just production trying to save money on extras or what. But I mean, even Alexandria, which is one of our main settings in the series, I still cannot tell you, even ballpark figure, how many people live there. We never really see for sure. So that's something I hope gets cleared up. And if they really have the numbers and they can get some weapons together, they have got to strike back together. But who knows, maybe Negan will be taken down a different way. I still feel like there has to be somebody within his community that turns against him for him to be taken down. So I haven't been doing this up to this point with these episode breakdowns, but I may start doing this. I feel like I really want to do this with this particular episode. So the weak points, starting off here with the weak points, the negatives for me, the humor just did not work. And I'll say this, if it wasn't for the actress that plays Tara being just so likable, and I think she is a very likable presence, great screen presence. If it wasn't for her having that sort of charisma, going on, then that humor would have fallen even flatter, because there were a lot of lines to me that just fell very flat and they just didn't feel like they fit into the series at all. I'm all for some levity in the series, but these lines just did not work. There were definitely some predictable moments. Like I said, the Walker attack from the sand, that was pretty predictable. And there's some other predictable moments as well. So not really big surprises. And then Heath's quick turn, like I said, just it didn't quite work for me. You know, other people may feel differently, but that just didn't quite work for me. You know, and I'm really hoping to see that they do something more interesting with his character as well. Now, the positives, I think the acting was strong. I said this before. I definitely stand by this. There was some really strong acting throughout this episode. I think there was more tension than there's been in the past couple of episodes, you know, with the Walker scene. And again, even though it wasn't the strongest Walker scene, I think there was some tension among Tara and the members of Oceanside as well. I felt like, maybe not in the strongest way, but I see that they're trying to connect some threads by actually letting us see Tara return to Alexandria. I think that was nice, even though it was brief. I think that was important. And Eugene, I give props to that actor that plays Eugene, because he didn't speak a word, but just that emotional moment of seeing Tara return and knowing that he has to give her all this bad news, that was powerful to me. And the score, normally I don't really notice the music that much within the series, but they did a great job with it. Whoever the composer is and the way the music was put together, everything flowed very nicely, and the music had to turn a lot along with Tara's emotions and everything, and they did a good job of piecing it all together. So yeah, big props to them on that. So those are my thoughts about this episode. I'm pretty sure there's even more I could have said about it, and after I'm done with this video, I'll probably be kicking myself like I should have said this and that. But I did want to try to keep this somewhat brief. Definitely want to hear your feedback and your thoughts about this particular episode. Like I said, not a strong episode, and viewers tuning out, I can understand that. But for me, I think the actors carried this episode enough to where I was engaged, and I'm still interested to see what's going to happen next. You know, I'm really hoping that things do get a little more exciting, though. Things kind of pick up, because they certainly need to. But yeah, looking forward to hear your feedback. Thank you for watching, and talk to you all again real soon.